Hey everyone! Today I'm going to teach you how to throw a lidded jar. Maybe like a sugar jar or a little keepsake jar. Anyway, let's get started. Center your clay. I skipped past this part because if you want to learn how to center, you can watch some of my centering videos. The first part we're going to throw is the body of the jar. You can kind of make it whatever shape you want. I like mine to be kind of round. I'm going to do a round one. There are so many different ways that you can throw a lidded vessel. Some people like to put the gallery into the actual jar. Some people like to put the gallery into the lid. Some people throw it all as one piece. I find that the easiest way for beginners is to throw the gallery into the lid. So for this part, if you struggle a little bit still with your pulling in your vessels, it's a lot more forgiving. So just kind of make a shape that you like. Don't stress too hard about it. It can be tall like a cylinder and narrow. It can be wide and round. It can be super wonky. Doesn't really matter as long as the top is nice and level. So pull your vessel. I'm going to start to round this out. And leave a little bit of a neckline here to kind of distinguish the top. I suppose you don't really have to leave a neckline, but I find it looks nice, so don't make it too tall. Sometimes it can end up looking a little like an urn, but it's all about how you decorate it. Maybe you want it to look like an urn. That's fine. Okay. I like this part to be fairly tall and flat. If it looks a little weird, maybe I'll even just trim the rim a bit if you've got a wobble going on. If you don't, then it's fine. Maybe I'll show you if you want to trim your rim just to make sure it's flat. Just grab a pin tool. A little trim. Pop that off. If it maybe was long, this will help make it shorter, but if it was a little wobbly, this will flatten it out. Okay, so I'm just going to trim away the excess clay at the bottom. Get all the water out from the inside. I already did that, but if you haven't, sure you do that. I like to get the water off the outside, and I like to squeegee off my bats. Make sure that everything looks clean. And we're just gonna wire this real quick. Alright, so you're gonna need either a ruler. I like to use calipers though. Grab them and measure the inside dimension. Get it as close as possible, but if anything, maybe measuring it a little smaller to be safe isn't the end of the world. Okay, once you have that dimension, set it aside. Pop this out, and now we can make our lid. Okay, grab a small piece of clay. I use a pretty small piece of clay for the lid. I don't need it to be too much. It can be kind of hard to center sometimes, a tiny piece of clay, but I know you'll figure it out. Okay, for the first part, it's almost like making a plate. I just kind of smoosh down on top of this, get a little flat disc. I grab my calipers and I just make sure that it's a bit wider than what I need, which it is. Okay, now I'm going to use my finger to kind of drill down into the center here and start pulling out a gallery. You can see this makes a bit of a raised lip that you can then use for your lid gallery. I like to push this little bit of extra clay down to create a bit more of a lip that you can get your fingers around. Grab your calipers, flip them this way. This is looking pretty close, maybe a little big, but that's okay, because I'm going to do a little tiny pull to help thin out this gallery a bit, make it a bit taller. You don't want your gallery to be too deep, but it does help to create a nice grip on the inside of that rim. Try and aim for, as best as you can, a little bit of a 90-degree edge on the outside. I can tell that this probably got smaller now. So let's bring our calipers back. And yes, indeed, it got smaller. But it's pretty darn close. If you leave a little bit of thickness to your gallery or to the lip of your jar, if your lid's a little, too tight or a little too wide at the gallery, you have some room to trim, so you can make it a little bit skinnier, and then hopefully it'll fit for you. But try to get it as close as possible so you don't have to fuss with it too much at the trimming stage. This might be a little tall, so I'm going to take my pin tool. I'm just going to trim out a little bit of the height. Like to check again and make sure things are looking pretty good. Got a bit smaller. Let's go a little wider. Stretch it out a little. Check again. It's pretty close, but let's get it a little bit wider. I always make sure that I measure all the way down to like the base of the gallery, just in case you don't have perfectly straight walls. It might taper out near the base, and you want that to be the snug part, so that looks pretty good. Take my sponge, get off some of the goop. Okay, and then if you remember, this gallery is going to fit on the inside of your jar, so you don't really need this much of an overhang on the outside. I like to leave a little bit just to see, make sure I have something to play with when I trim, but I like to take my pin tool and trim some of this out. Stop my wheel, cut it, just peel that away. And then sometimes I like to take my trimming tool that I use at the end and just kind of trim this a bit, make sure it's pretty flat, and then maybe come from the outside here, try and get that as vertical as possible. Okay. Calipers again, because every time I touch it I like to make sure. Let's go a little wider because we trimmed out some of that thickness, trying not to affect the nice 90-degree angle that I trimmed in there. And then I like to run this just a little bit around that edge, create a tiny bit of lift. Not a big deal. Alright, so that is a lid with a gallery. Basically like an upside down lid. So this part, you flip it, stick it on the inside of your jar. When you trim this, you're going to trim your bottom jar first, set it down, put the lid on, secure it, and trim the lid on top of the jar. It's going to have a flat top, which is fine if you like a flat top, but if you want to, you can also sculpt the little knob and stick a knob on there, or you could actually throw a knob onto the top side of this lid. I think it's cute to sculpt little animals and stick those on and call those your knob. So you can get really creative with it. There are ways where you can throw a lid bottom side down and then throw a knob, but then you don't really get access to creating a nice gallery. That way you actually have to put the gallery inside of the pot so that the lid sits into the pot. But this is how you create a gallery in your lid, and yeah, hopefully you find that helpful. Thanks.